YouTube? It's me, Gaby Dunn. You'll recall that I am one half of this channel. I have a podcast called Bad with Money. It's about finances and feelings. It's relatable. It's not shaming. Our guest this week on the show is Senator Elizabeth Warren. We're going to talk about student loans and the wealth tax, and we're getting real into the nitty-gritty of it. I am amazed that Elizabeth Warren is a guest on our show. I am so happy that I got to ask her some tough questions. And then also in the episode, we talked to one of my BFFs from college, Casey Fielding. She's a Boston local. She's the first in her family to go to college, and she feels that she's going to die with her $70K of loans. So she is actually probably more relatable to the audience of this show than even I am at this point. So check out this clip from the show, and then if you like it, link in the description so you can listen to the whole episode. Thank you. Bye.
There's two issues that you're on about. One is extending the deadline, and one is canceling student loan debt. Yep. And I feel like is it a game of like if I could get the second one, I don't need the first one?
You are right about that. If we can get the second one, then we can bring the 15% of people who now have student loan debt, who would still have student loan debt. It's a lot easier to manage. 15% than it is to manage 100% of the folks with student loan debt. And, here's the thing about it. I just want to give you a profile kind of who really gets impacted by this. Because sometimes you get this vision in your brain and you don't quite hook into it. About 40% of the people who have student loan debt don't have a college degree.
Right. They never finished.
That's right. And God bless them. A lot of them are people who tried, and that's what we want people to be able to do. These are people who didn't come from families that could just write a check for them to go to college. They tried, they borrowed the money, signed up, and then life happened. They had babies. They were working 3 jobs. Mom got sick. They moved. They got laid off. The pieces fell apart. So now 40% of the people with student loan debt, think about this, they earn at the level a high school graduate earns.
Right.
But they're trying to pay down student loan debt. And these are folks, a lot of them have $30,000, $40,000 of student loan debt. It's not a huge sum if you're earning at a college level.
Right.
But it's just a bone crusher for somebody who's in there bouncing maybe just a little above minimum wage. So that's part of it.
It's punishing people for trying to reach outside of their economic background. It's punishing people for trying to move classes. And it's so anti-American.
Yep. It's punishing people who I always think of as, people who try. If you don't try, you don't end up with student loan debt, right? Or if you're born into a family of privilege, you don't end up with student loan debt. But it's all those folks in between, many of whom tried and it didn't work out. Another thing about the student loan debt is how much it is about the racial wealth gap in America. So African Americans, Latinx, borrow more money to go to school, borrow more money while they're in school, and have a harder time paying it off when they get out of school. There's one stat, there's a million stats around this that I work on and kind of, deep into the data, but I want to give you one. And that is, we've looked at the data, and 20 years out, think about this, 20 years after you leave college, the average white person who borrowed student loan debt, owes about 5% of the amount they still owed. So that tells you the average person is still paying 20 years later, 5%. In other words, not great, but the end is in sight. The average African American still owes about 95% of what they owed when they left school 20 years earlier. Think about that. That means not only is the end not in sight, we're talking about people who may be dealing with student loan debt until they die. The single biggest thing the President of the United States could do to help close the racial wealth gap in America for people who have student loan debt is cancel $50,000 of student loan debt. It would help close the black-white wealth gap by about 25 points, and the Latinx white wealth gap by 27 points. There's just nothing else the president could do to move the needle that significantly. So I'll keep those cards and letters coming in. We need to tell the president to do this.
It just seems like a no-brainer. But I was going to ask, like, what would you say to, a lot of friends of mine just say, I'm going to die with my debt?
No, we can change that. This is policy. This is American policy. We have made changes in student loan program. President Obama did it. President Trump did it. President Biden has already done it. I just want him to take this step, this big step, because if he does, it not only will help your friends individually, frankly, we should all have an interest in it, whether you have student loan debt or not.
Right.
Student loan debt is keeping people from moving out of their parents' homes, keeping people, you could finish this one for me, Gabby, keeping people from buying homes, right? It's keeping people, the data show, from starting their own small businesses.
Yeah,
this
in
should
bad
be
jobs.
a moment. That's exactly right. This is when we need people, young people, to be part of this economy. And the best way to get them in is to say, we're going to cancel $50,000 of student loan debt.
I wanted to ask briefly about the wealth tax situation. And I saw a tweet of yours that said, by getting out of paying taxes, billionaires and giant corporations have been riding the backs of hardworking families. The American people know they're getting the wrong end of the deal. We must make the rich and powerful pay for their fair share. And I was going to say, I love this sentiment. I worry that American people don't know just how raw of a deal they're getting. Like, I think we've been sold this lie that one day we could become billionaires or heads of giant corporations, and we don't think of their ascents as being on our backs or our families' backs. So how do you think we combat this like false idealizing of the American dream so that people like really do wake up and ask for more from billionaires and corporations?
So I think part of it is people are getting a pretty good picture of this. When it turns out that Jeff Bezos pays nothing, when it turns out that one billionaire after another pays either teeny little bit of their money or they pay nothing. People get this. People who are hardworking folks, people making minimum wage, they pay their taxes, and somebody has to pay the taxes to keep this country going. So I do a little numbers again, bear with me here. The 99% in America last year paid about 7.2% of their total wealth in taxes, all in your federal taxes. 99% paid that. The top 1/10%, the super millionaires and billionaires, they paid about 3.2%. So, come on, guys. Let's just level the playing field a little.